In Moscow, men appealing their military conscription are being detained en masse, the Civil Alliance of Russia reports. According to the organization's leader, lawyer Oleg Filatchev, facial recognition is being used for this purpose. He said their 19-year-old client, who is contesting his military conscription, was detained in the metro on October the 18th and taken to a collection point on Ugreshskaya Street along with about 20 other men who had been detained in a similar manner. According to Filatchev, when a conscript appeals a decision, the military enlistment office transfers their data to the system as if they were a draft dodger, so police detain them if they are caught on a facial recognition camera. Moreover, according to the lawyer, representatives of those taken to Ugreshskaya are not allowed to see them, despite a notarized power of attorney. The lawyer recommended that those challenging the draft avoid using the metro and, if detained and sent to the assembly point, refuse to undergo a medical examination without a properly served summons, citing illegal delivery. A complaint should also be filed with the military prosecutor's office. The autumn conscription began on October the 1st and ends on December the 31st. A total of 135,000 Russians aged 18 to 30 are scheduled to serve in the army. This is the largest autumn campaign since 2016, when President Vladimir Putin ordered the conscription of 152,000 citizens, including the record 160,000 recruits drafted in the spring. A total of 295,000 new recruits are scheduled to serve this year. Since the fall, conscripts in Moscow, Mariel, and the Ryazan and Sakhalin regions have been receiving only electronic summonses, which are considered delivered once they appear in the relevant register. From that date on, the recipient is prohibited from leaving Russia. But some conscripts declare that they do not want to be victims of Putin's war. In the event of draft evasion, citizens are prohibited from registering as individual entrepreneurs or self-employed, driving a car, obtaining a passport, taking out loans, and conducting real estate transactions. Furthermore, they may be subject to an administrative fine of 10,000 to 30,000 rubles. But most Russian soldiers fighting in Ukraine chose to do so, and did so not for values, but for cold, hard cash. Many think that the Russians are forced to fight. In fact, the Kremlin is afraid of mobilizing its people. Katerina Stepanenko, Russia Research Fellow at the Institute for the Study of War, told the Kiev Independent. Instead, Russian President Vladimir Putin relies on paying vast sums of money in order to entice people to sign up voluntarily, which they continue to do so in droves. Up to 40,000 a month, according to NATO estimates from August. The moral equivalence of these two armies is impossible. Pavel Luzin, an independent Russian military analyst, told the Kiev Independent, Russia's side is completely immoral, and the vast majority of its soldiers went to war voluntarily, driven by financial and psychological interests, not by coercion. One side is an occupying force, trying to subjugate another country and its people. The other is fighting for its freedom. These are fundamentally different causes. In Yakutia, from October the 21st, some bus routes between settlements of the Republic will stop working. According to the head of the Ministry of Transport of the region, Vladimir Sivtsev, this will affect the lines Yakutsk, Pokrovsk, Moksogolok, Yakutsk, Berdizhestyak, Yakutsk, Namtsi, Katrik, and Nizhny Bestyak, Kurapcha, reports the Telegram channel Honest Yakutia. The buses are scheduled to resume operation only in January 2026. The reason for the restrictions is the lack of funds in the budget to finance public transportation. Now there are no figures for a number of programs, at zeros, but the second reading funding will be available. Let's not ask such questions yet. Yuri Nikolaev, head of the relevant committee, said during a budget hearing in the Republic's parliament, writes the Moscow Times. There are also problems with providing people with food in Yakutia northern regions. Products on the socially important list, like flour, bread, sugar, due to difficult conditions this year, have been delivered very little. Entrepreneurs do not carry such products. We will still be able to reach the new year, but how will we get there? Asked a representative of the Bulun Ulus at a meeting in the parliament. In response, he was told that they would return to this topic during the second reading of the budget. The channel LB Potok writes that the food imported by the authorities to the Arctic regions, including fresh eggs and vegetables, is primarily distributed to military families and educational institutions, while the rest of the local residents are sold what is left in the stores. We are talking in particular about the village of Saskalak, the route to which from Yakutsk is 2,500 to 2,900 kilometers. Moskva reported earlier that the Yakutian JSC Arctic Trade and Logistics Company, engaged in the northern importation of socially important products, lost its funding due to the lack of money in the budget. In 2025 to 2026, there will be no deliveries along the winter road, the company said. By the lack of money, the Yakutian authorities are preparing to carry out mass layoffs in budgetary organizations, which have already begun in a number of districts of the Republic. The Federation of Trade Unions of Yakutia urged not to classify information about layoffs, to which the head of the regional finance ministry, Valery Alexeyev, said that no layoffs are planned, accusing the trade unions of stirring up the situation. According to the operational data of the unified portal of the budget system of the Russian Federation, at the end of September, the cumulative deficit of the regions reached 724.8 billion rubles against a surplus of 472.1 billion rubles for the same period of 2024. Interim deficit was recorded in 68 subjects. Total expenditures of the regions grew by 15% year on year to 16 trillion rubles. At the same time, revenue growth amounted to only 6%. Against this background, some regions, including the Yaroslavl region and Dagestan, are preparing to raise taxes and cut tax exemptions. This is causing protests in the regions. It is expected that such protests will soon expand in scale.